that took so long for me to even forgive him for the divorce and leaving us. It's that feeling of you left me. I felt misunderstood a lot. I think my whole childhood I felt misunderstood. So I was like a emo goth kid.
Oh, okay.
And for some teachers, even that I was just different, was provoking already. It can be very frustrating if you see a child that's not doing well and there's nothing you can do about it. Treating me in a way, and I don't understand why, because I'm not mad right now, right?
Mm.
But they were already like, "Ooh," trying to navigate around that. And then that made me angry because I'm like, why are you treating me like this?
So, would you mind telling the audience a little bit about yourself, a little bit of background, because somebody might relate to you? Are you like the oldest child, the youngest child? Just a little bit that somebody can relate to.
Yeah, well, that's an interesting question to start off with. So I am from the Netherlands, born and raised here, and I'm a child of divorce. So
Mm.
my parents split up when I was fairly young. I think I was just 5 years old. So within my set of biological parents, I am the oldest sister of two. But in total, with the step parents, there obviously were some siblings added on, and because this happened when I was very young, I always say I come from a family of six. So there
Mm.
were a few older siblings added to the family, and then a younger one as well for me. So in the bigger picture of growing up, I would say I'm the oldest of the middle children. So,
Oldest of the middle children. Okay,
yes.
interesting. Okay, so conflicts,
Hmm.
parent-child conflicts. Could you could you think of a time when something small turned into something big? Either even if it wasn't for you, have you seen a situation where a small thing got blown out of proportion between a parent and a child?
So I would say there's been a lot of conflict in my upgrowing because, of course, in a family like this, it's very complicated situation with step parents, step siblings. It was a lot, I would
Mm.
say, and I think that the conflicts that we've had were usually besides the standard puberty stuff, I would say it's always been personality traits where you match better with some parents and you mismatch with others.
Mm.
That can be challenging, especially when children grow up. I think when children are very young, they have a very strong personality. And then when we get older, we go through this like phase of finding our identity or developing our identity, which brings up a lot of fights, a lot of conflicts. I left the house when I was quite young,
Our
and
youngest quite young.
yeah, I'm gonna say when I was 16, so I finished high school. I was just 17. I finished high school and then I moved to like the basement. I had my own entrance, and because there was already so much conflict within the house,
Okay.
that we tried that to have me a bit separated from my parents, for everybody to get their own space. And I very quickly, because I was studying anyways, and then I just found my own room within a few months, and then I really moved out of the house. So I was like, I would say 17 when I started living on my own. But I've never felt like if you say, was there something that you did as a child that got blown out of proportion? I don't have that feeling looking back in my childhood. And I think what all my parents did very well is always acknowledge that we're in a shitty situation and we have children who are developing and who have to also deal with split up parents, with step parents, with new siblings. So I think they've always been very aware of how complicated the situation was, and it never gave us the idea or the feeling that it was our fault. Because I think I did, especially for my mom. I was very hard on my mom growing up, and I would say from maybe 10, 11 years on, when I really started to develop my personality and started to talk back.
Mm.
We've had a lot of fights, but I don't even remember any of them anymore. Of course, it's been a while. I'm 34 now, so it's been a little while. But it's interesting because you asked me that question, and I'm trying to think of an example also with my other siblings, but I don't really remember something like that happening. Does that make sense? That there was definitely a lot of conflict, but I don't feel like anything was gotten, taken out of proportion or blamed on a child, on the behavior of the child. I think all my parents took responsibility very well. And also later on, we've had a lot of conversations when we grew up, when we went through therapy, all of us, and
Yeah.
gotten back to our parents with these questions like, why did you did that? Or why did you make me feel like this? And with all my parents, I could have very honest conversations where they would just say, this is the situation we were in. This is what I was trying to do, and maybe I failed doing that, but it was the first time for me as well. And we tried to give you as much space to acknowledge feelings and frustrations, and never blame that on you.
You say this is what I was trying to do.
Mhm.
What was it that they were trying to do?
This is something that my mom has said a few times in these conversations that we would have later on. And I think it was mainly trying to support us, matching with the kind of child that we were. So even, growing up when we were in high school, there were different rules for me than for my younger sister. If we talk about, going out into town, what times you go out, what time do you have to come back, are you allowed to sleep over with your boyfriend or not, stuff like that. She really tried to put individual rules on where she felt we could handle the responsibility.
Mm,
And sometimes, because I've also struggled with depression a lot, and that started maybe even before high school, but definitely in high school. That's also when I got diagnosed with dyslexia, which was a different thing to deal with. Also new for my mom coming out of a very academic family. So she was always very aware of every child is different, and I'm trying to give you what you need to develop in this phase of your life, but also having no clue how to do that. So that did go wrong sometimes. I don't really have an example of that, but I know that we've had this conversation because I went to her and I was like, "Why did you do this? Why did you do this to me?"
hmm
I don't have that feeling anymore. That's why I don't really, I don't really have these examples. But this is something that really stuck with me. And also coming from different cultures, we have a very mixed family. So my mom's Dutch, my biological father Chinese, Surinamen, Indonesian. My stepmom's Indonesian Dutch. My stepdad is Afro-American, so he came here with the army, ended up here back in the days. So that means that in the background, there's a lot of different cultures. My mom was fully Dutch, raising children who have different skin tones and coming from different cultural backgrounds, which she was very aware of, and also had difficulty navigating that sometimes. And especially with me, I do feel that my personality, a lot of my personality traits, I see there's a lot of Suriname in there. The temperament, it's something that is not very Dutch.
mm,
And my mom was aware of that and tried to support me. But also, if you haven't had a childhood like that, being from mixed race, growing up in the fairly white southern part of the of the country here in the Netherlands, that's some new challenges for her as well. So,
yeah.
yeah.
You said something. You said, I think it was interesting. You said she tried to approach each kid differently because
Hmm.
she knew different kids could handle different things. There was different rules for different kids.
Yeah.
How, that's interesting because some people approach parenting with, it worked for me, it worked for my kid,
Yeah.
or like a one size fits all approach. But it's interesting how your mom could, but you say sometimes she got it wrong.
Yeah, I think a lot of the time she got it wrong, but also my mom's not a social worker, so she's not educated to handle a child going to puberty with a depression. What do you do in that situation, you know?
Yeah.
And coming from a divorced family as well, those are very big things that you have to deal with anyways. And I feel like with parenting, it's every time you do it for the first time, every child you do it for the first time. But something that comes up if you say that my mom was not very I wouldn't say not very happy, but she had a challenging childhood as well. So she already was very aware of how something that a parent does can influence the upgrowing of a child. I think maybe she was more aware of that than other people from her generation.
Yeah.
That's something that I feel looking back in her childhood that she really tried to navigate it, even though she knew not always I know what I'm doing, but I'm really gonna try keep having these conversations. This is something I'm very grateful for with all my parents that we could always have conversations and just say, I don't know what to do. Tell me what you need, or I'm trying to do this, or I know that you're angry. You can, but you cannot behave like this. And they were always very open about these topics, even when we as children were not, because I can definitely say in that phase I was emotionally locked down and, depressed, like I said. So that's it was very different, difficult to approach me. But they still tried. So when I was ready for it, I felt like, okay, I can safely go to my parents and ask these questions, have these conversations, help them help me now.
Mm. You said sometimes they would come to you and you didn't want to talk about that. You was shut down, but on your
Hmm.
own time, you would go to them.
Yeah, later on, I think when I had my time being separated from them, so going out of the house, it was when I was in college and maybe even later on it's when I started my first therapy, that's really when these serious conversations happened. But I do feel that when I was younger, so if you look at like early childhood, when my parents split up, and my dad left, and my mom also had this conversation with him, like you need to tell Katinka because the child is 5 and she already knows, and tomorrow she's gonna wake up and you're not gonna be there, and you have your own bond with your child, which is a different one than I have, so you need to tell her and you need to explain this. So I don't remember this, of course, but he sat me down and we've had this conversation and they had me ask any question I had, even being so young. That's something that I see rarely, or I think, especially in my generation, when we look at our childhoods, I don't think a lot of parents have these conversations when children are so young. They try to protect them from situations, protect them from heavy emotions. Yeah, and I think that we were allowed to have them, which wasn't easy, and it made for a lot of fights,
Yeah.
verbal fights. But maybe now, in hindsight, looking back, also gave us the possibility to later on develop as or mature our emotions and being able to talk about this.
Yeah. That's good. You said your parents were open and y'all were able to talk about, you know, serious topics. I know some people, they just sweep it under the rug. They don't want to talk about it.
Yeah, I see that a lot. And sometimes it's the wrong parent because this is something, especially because we have so many different relationships within our family with different siblings. I have an individual relationship with all of them. And with some, I match better than with others because that is just, we're all human beings. We have our own personalities and views of the world, so that's fine. But especially with the parents, there are conversations that a stepdad can have with a stepdaughter, but a lot of them you cannot. And then don't try to do that. I think this is something that they've all been very aware of, that we still have boundaries, and there's like the original family will always be the original family. And sometimes an added on family member needs to stay away from that. With the siblings, same thing. I have a good relationship with all of them, but my little sister is my only biological sister, and there's something there, and we have the same position within the whole family, in the divorces. So there's certain things that we just have with the two of us that we don't share with the other ones.
Yeah.
And then there's things that we're like, we're such an special family, and I've never met a child that comes from a same six sibling kind of situation like ours. And then we do have this whole group setting, and that's very important. That if it's better for the mom to have a conversation with this child, then do that. Or sometimes it's dad that needs to have that conversation, and that is okay. You cannot be the person for everything in your child's upgrowing, for every conversation. And that's don't expect that from yourself and definitely don't expect that from a child.
How you said so you were 5 years old. So your stepdad and I don't know, what you call step siblings. Were they like
Mhm.
strangers? Would you like started moving in with strangers?
Yeah, no, so I don't like this step
Yeah, I
thing.
don't like it
Just
neither,
saying,
but I don't.
yeah,
But
I'm
that's the
just
word.
saying that now for so everybody that's listening to this conversation so that they are aware
Bonus. Let's say
of
bonus. Bonus dad and bonus siblings.
still,
No?
for me, my siblings just feel like my siblings.
Okay.
So two of them I already knew. Um, and two of them were new, and they're also so my brother and my sister are a lot older.
Mm,
So when this let me think. So my brother is 9 years older than me. So by the time that they came into our family, I think I was 6 or 7. So he was already going to college, probably,
mm,
or at that phase when we moved in. So my stepdad, bonus dad, moved in with us. My parents bought a house together, and those siblings were living with their mom in a different city, so they would come over. But my brother was already out of the house living on his own in a different city. So we did see him every now and then. We looked up to them very much, but for them, they were way older. So they got introduced to new siblings who were little children,
yeah.
who were always very happy to see them. Like, ah, Canada's here. And he was like the coolest guy ever in the world. So we were so excited every time he was here. But now later on, we've had this conversation. I'm like, I can imagine, by the time that I turned like 20 something, I was like, that is weird. If now you have a 10-year-old wanting to play with you because all of a sudden somebody decided that now we are siblings, when you're in a
Yeah.
different developmental phase, it's a very different process. So I think for them, it took way longer for us to really become a family, like emotionally. And for me and my little sister, two older siblings, we were just very excited and happy every time that they come over and they had like new music and cool stuff. And it was just, yeah, and it's also families grow, right? So with different things happening throughout the years, all of us at some point turning against our parents that really bonded us. Then my sister, my older sister, at some point was going through a rough phase. So then she moved into the house, and that's when we really bonded as siblings, because now we had this like midnight drinking tea, gossiping about our stupid parents' situations, and then we really became siblings. And with my brother, it was even later on when we had a family member, the cousin, younger cousin, die, and that's really when I felt like,
Mm,
oh, I want to see my brother. That's when going through these heavy situations together, that family bond is still there. So that's why I don't really like the bonus step. It doesn't feel like that anymore.
yeah.
We've had that phase maybe, but and then with my little brother and my other sister, they live. It's like a 3-hour train ride from here. So when we were younger,
Okay.
elementary school, we would go there every other weekend. And then we would have a weekend and sleep in each other's rooms, and we would play together from early age on. They've never not been in my life.
Yeah.
So that was naturally growing up. It's like we are siblings, but we just don't see each other that much.
Yeah. It's a
And
3 hour train drive. I think you said that you and your sister would sit up late at night drinking tea, gossiping about
Mhm.
parents. You remember any
Mhm.
stories that you would gossip about?
Yes, might have to ask permission to share some of them. Um, but we're here in the Netherlands. We like to drink some wine or beer, so there were always things that happened, and we were older. So back then, we were allowed to drink alcohol at 16 years old.
Okay.
And then here in the south, we celebrate Carnival. Like in Brazil, they celebrate Carnival. We have that here as well, but it's winter
Okay.
time, and that's kind of when people start drinking, or when you're 14 or 15. Now the age is different. Now it's 18 plus, but then it was still 16. So at 14, we would drink a beer, or 15 with our parents, not getting like super drunk, but that's when it started. It was very normal back then. So, and then you see your parents going out as well. So it's a different, I think that gives a different relationship. That's kind of when that changed, when we saw our parents also doing some stupid stuff, or coming back home from the cab and forgetting their glasses in the back of the cab, and stuff like that, and you become aware of it. So it's just the stories that we have going out to parties, but then also combined with our parents. And then sometimes it was just they ate the cookie or they ate the last piece of cake, and then you just become mad at each other. I think there was a lot of anger and frustration from all the divorce situations that lashes out in about stupid stuff in the house, you know.
Yeah. You ever had
Um,
any misunderstandings about that? Where, or you ever felt misunderstood?
I felt misunderstood a lot. I think my whole childhood I felt misunderstood. Um, a big part of that, I think, was the cultural difference between maybe me and my mom, but also my dad, my stepdad. He's from the US, so that's also a different culture. Um, and then also not feeling very connected to the Dutch culture here. You know, there was a lot of mismatching there that I had to figure out myself growing up. And it's also after I finished my studies, I went to South Africa, and then some things clicked for me that being colored is a thing. In the Netherlands, that's not something we know. You're black or you're white, maybe Asian, but and
Yeah.
we are all of that. So that makes you none of it. And with my emotions as well, I've always had a very difficult time with navigating my own emotions and thought process. So that's where I couldn't express myself. So for my parents or sometimes also my siblings, of course they don't understand it if I don't even understand it. So
Mm.
um, and high school, same thing. Uh, but I've had a lot of, if I was even in school, if I even went to follow a class, then I got in a lot of fights with teachers. I wouldn't say some of them I really loved and they absolutely adored me, but most of them, maybe not the best situation. So, yeah, there was a lot of that going on, and I feel, but that was all my own process. So I've never connected that really to something that my parents did or did not do.
Yeah.
And now, because I came out of that a very emotionally healthy adult, which therapy helped, and then also being able to ask my questions with my parents, and being able to also be mad for years and years with my dad, that took so long for me to even forgive him for the divorce and leaving us. You know, it's that feeling of you left me. That even I think I only started that process when I started my coaching education, and then, you know, becoming aware of consciousness and how our brain does things, and how we can control our emotions and thoughts. That's when that just started for me, putting these puzzle pieces together. So that's also something that I really want to say to people that ha still have these feelings now growing up, and especially if you get children yourself, or if you have children yourself, look at your own process. Are you even there yet? I think all my parents were not there yet, but they were aware of it.
We're not there
So they
yet. What's the there?
emotionally, you know,
Okay.
coming out of your childhood and kind of cutting the cord with the child version of yourself, or those emotions, putting all of that in perspective, finishing up your own emotional maturity. I think that's a process that's all on our own. And my parents were maybe not at that point yet when we were growing up, but they were aware of that is a process that we are in, and we need to teach our children that take responsibility for what you think, what you feel, and then I'm here if you need me. But I don't always know what to do.
Yeah. You you mentioned class, going to school, teachers, getting
Yes.
into fights with teachers. You
Yeah.
ever had a misunderstanding with a teacher where they thought you were trying to do something, but it was really something else?
Yeah, that was just me walking in the room. Oh, the best one was my English teacher. She so I was like a emo goth kid,
Oh, okay.
not really wearing a lot of makeup. I've never worn makeup, but I dyed my hair black, and I was wearing like the nets on my hands and the skeleton clothes and all that stuff, listening to emo music, Evanescence, Linkin Park, you know, that whole that whole
Yeah.
thing. And for some teachers, even that I was just different was provoking already.
Mm,
And there was a lot of anger in me, so I think I carried myself very angrily. So that was in my music, that was in my choice of clothes, but also in my attitude, of course. like I said, there's a temperament in me. My emotions are very strong, and I had no filter back then, so I could just. My mom would always say, like, if you are not happy, nobody in the world will ever be happy.
Mm.
That we can have the happiest room of people, but if Katinka is angry and you walk in there, everybody's day is ruined.
Oh yeah.
Now it works the other way around as well. I have that with my happiness now, so that's then I would call it a good character trait, but it could also be very toxic, and I think for a lot of teachers that was difficult, and especially that English teacher, she just didn't want me in the class and always looking for an excuse to either give me a worse grade or just kick me out of the class, which was fine because I didn't even want to be there, but just that provoking attitude was really something. Some teachers knew how to navigate that a bit better or give me space in that, but not all of them. And then the dyslexia was a part of that as well. I remember this one assignment that we once had to do, and you had to spell. I wrote down like color. I still don't know, but you can write it with an O-U or with only an O.
Oh yeah.
I don't know
Oh,
which one is the US version or the British
we
English.
leave the U out in the US.
Okay, well, me too. And then she would say like, "Well, that's we learn a British English here, not American English." And she literally said, "Only if you would have a good excuse to make this mistake, I can give you the points for it, but otherwise not." And my answer was like, "Well, one, I'm dyslexic, and my dad's from the US." And her response was, "Well, then it might be a bit more difficult for you." And then she still gave me the bad grade. And then I was
Wow.
so angry. That's when I knew I'm like, you just hate me.
Right.
Yeah, so it was situations like that. And it was mainly like arts teachers, music teacher that adored me because I was very good at that. And those were the classes you could always find me, and like the extracurriculum projects and stuff like that. But the regular classes, no,
Interesting.
wasn't for me.
Misunderstood. You walk in the room and the English teacher, she already got it out for you. Do you think she might have had a story in her head that Katinka thinks that she's some hot shot? Who do you think you is with all of the uh clothing and the music, and you think
Hmm.
she had an idea in her mind, but she don't know your backstory. She don't know all the stuff you're dealing with at home.
Yeah.
How do you think these assumptions play a part in our dynamics with people?
I think they play a big part, especially if you talk about teachers. I think everybody becomes a teacher because they want to teach, right? They want somebody else to learn something. And if you decide to be a teacher in high school, you must have some kind of passion for it because it's a challenging job. So I think it can be very frustrating if you see a child that's not doing well and there's nothing you can do about it.
Mm,
I think this is a frustration that my mother has expressed sometimes. So she's just like, I saw you going downhill and I just didn't know what to do at that moment. Teachers can have that as well. Yeah, and also we just have different personalities sometimes. I feel like specifically with this English teacher, she just had a personality that was a mismatch with mine. Um, but as an adult to not be able to accept that or move beyond that, I think that's a responsibility of the adult in that situation. Um,
exactly.
yeah, and this is also something I've been told by also my dad and my stepmom has said that. So there's been a phase where they were almost afraid to talk to me because it was like afraid to say the wrong thing because they knew that I would just completely explode
Yeah.
because there was so much anger and so much emotion and sadness, of course, a lot of it, that could just come out at any moment. So it's like family has been for a few years trying to navigate around me a little
Yeah.
bit, just don't kill me kind of situation. And I can imagine that some of these teachers would have that as well.
Real quick, Katinka just mentioned how misunderstood she felt growing up. Many kids feel the same way, but they don't have the words to say that directly. So it shows up as attitude, anger, distance, or just shutting down. If any of this sounds familiar, I'm building a parenting tool to help you make sense of your child's angry outbursts. If you want early access, just tap the link below, sign up for the priority list, and I'll let you know when it's ready. All right, back to the episode.
And if you have a dominant personality, you can. We had like 32 kids in that class. So if one of them decides that they're against you and they can get the whole class with them, then you really have a problem. So I think it's more that acting out of being afraid of something might happen, which is still a pattern I see a lot in adults. You don't see it a lot in children, but if they pick up on that, then it can be very challenging for a child to get out of that behavioral pattern,
If
usually.
a child picks up that the parents are tiptoeing around them, it could be hard for
Yeah,
them.
or that, or what I meant was the behavioral pattern of acting on an assumption of something that might happen.
Okay.
Because then you get a mismatch with what is actually happening with the child and the way that the child gets a response from you, right? So I felt this with, especially with my dad and my stepmom for a while, where I'm like, you're treating me in a way and I don't understand why, because I'm not mad right now, right?
Mm,
But they were already like, ooh, trying to navigate around that. And then that made me angry because I'm like, why are you treating me like this?
okay. Okay. And but you said there was an openness of communication. At this
Yeah.
time, they wasn't communicating.
No, at this time there was not. Also, I was in their house not that much. So when we were younger, we would go there every weekend. But of course, you grow up, you go to high school, then there's like birthday parties and stuff like that, and you don't really want to get away from your life. Like I said, it's a 3 hour train ride away from all my friends every weekend. So that's when we saw each other less and less. Um, there was still at that time no acceptance on my side for the whole situation, the divorce for my dad moving away. So the conversations happened way later.
Mm,
And that's also when they could tell me stuff like this, like just the way that you acted. I was almost scared to talk to you or to ask you this question, to even ask you how you are, which
right.
then I missed because I'm like, well, you never asked me how I was, so.
Right. Interesting. Do you think if they understood you better, that they would have been able to come and talk to you? Or was it like you said, you have this energy, this exterior that looks
Hmm.
intimidating,
Yeah.
and some people can't see past the intimidation, and so they stay away.
Yeah. Which was ultimately my goal as well in that phase of my life, right?
To have people
Just
stay away from you, leave me alone.
stay away from me. Yeah. And I think these, if we talk about stuff like this, I don't know if there was anything they could have done. We can brainstorm about it now. What if
Right,
A, then maybe B, but it's like coulda, woulda, shoulda.
right.
But you're also talking about a child with just mental problems. Right, so that's something that you just need professionals with as well. I mean, they seeked out professional help for me back then. I don't think we really found the right ones. School was maybe lacking on that as well. Looking back, I think high school could have done way more for me than they did.
You mean like what
So
counselors?
yeah, with counselors or, and of course I wasn't there a lot, but also just in my behavior, I think it was very clear that, that I wasn't doing well.
Yeah,
And that was just on me to do that later on. Studying social work really helped because there was a lot that I learned in my studies already that I was like, ah, okay, right. Might be some
man.
explanations for my childhood. And that's also uh, just a limit that I feel we need to accept as parents as well, that there's a limit to what you can do. I've studied social work for 4 years. I've done a coaching education. I've done an EMDR course, and now I understand all this. So don't expect if you're a parent raising a child for the first time, or your second child, which is still for the first time, different different child, that you can navigate these situations. And it's okay to find help and counseling for yourself, for your child, or for the family as a system. That I think that's the only way. It
Yeah.
takes a village, right?
It
Takes a-
takes a village. It takes a
and I
village.
think it takes more. It takes a metropole sometimes.
Metro.
Yeah.
Katinka, do you have any questions for me? I've been asking all the questions. You've been doing all the talking. I know it's an
Yeah.
interview. Usually that's how it goes. The host asks the interviewee, but I like dialogue. I like back and forth.
Yeah. Well, what I'm very curious about is what got you into supporting parents. Specific. There's a lot of people you could have supported, but what got you to actually focus on parents with this? Because you told me the age,
Like three
like
to
three
12.
to 12. Yeah.
3 to 12,
So what
yeah.
got you to decide this is what I find so interesting?
Okay, there's a few reasons. Like you said, it takes a village, and it all starts at home. So if you can get to a problem at the root, at the beginning, you can have a better outcome in the future. Instead of waiting for something to fester and getting it later on down the line, like with teenagers or adults, get them early. It's like pulling up a weed, pulling it by the roots. Instead of just cutting the
Hmm.
grass every 2 weeks, get it up from the roots. So I'm the oldest son of three boys, and my parents and my grandparents, they always said like, since you're the oldest, you're responsible. If something happened, we holding you accountable because you were supposed to have been watching your brothers. You're the oldest, you supposed to have been watching them. You're responsible for them. So ever since a little kid, I always had this in my head that I'm responsible for the people around me.
Hmm.
And that's I carry that into my adulthood. I feel responsible for the people around me. Even if we're not blood relatives, if you're around me, I feel
Hmm.
responsible for you.
Yeah.
So, parents. My middle brother, and my dad, we were sitting on the back steps looking up at the stars, and my dad started telling us a story. And I love stories. So I started getting immersed into it. I just started daydreaming, like imagining that I'm in this story. I don't remember what he was telling us, but I just remember getting into it. And you know how in the cartoons they play the harp, the sound of the harp, and it's like, "Da-da-da-da-da-da," and I'm like, ah. Right. So I let out a sigh of relief like that and relaxation. And in my mind, this was a positive thing. I'm into it. But my dad, he misinterpreted that. He thought I was saying like, "Oh, this is boring." So he said, "Is my story boring you? Go take your tail in the house." He cussed me. He cussed at me. He didn't say tail. He used the cuss words. He had some choice words. Said, "Go take your tail in the house." And in my mind, I'm like, "What happened? I'm having a positive experience. Why are you taking it so negative?" And I try to explain,
Hmm.
and he's like, "I don't want to hear that. Get out of my face. Get out of my face." So that misunderstanding was something that stayed with me for a while because I felt like, why won't you hear my side of the story? Why are you jumping to conclusions? Why do you assume that this was a negative thing? Why didn't you ask? Why didn't you get clarity? Why you just jump straight to and start cussing me out? Um, so things like that, and this happened as a little kid. I'm 38 now. This is almost 30 years ago. And I remember it like it was last week. So
This is what I meant with that uh, acting on an assumed outcome of the situation, right?
acting on the assumed outcome. Yeah.
Yeah.
Earlier you said that parents assumed that you was going to lash out at them, so they didn't come talk to you. They say, "Oh, I don't want to say the wrong thing because Tinker might fuss me out."
Yeah.
He now another thing. I know my dad didn't have a great childhood. I know that he was dealing with his own stuff. I talked to a friend about this before, and they said that me saying, he might have thought that I didn't want to hear what he had to say. And maybe when he was a kid, somebody put him through a same situation where his voice is not valuable. Nobody cares what you have to say. So when he hear me make that sigh, maybe it triggers some childhood trauma. Then it's like, oh, you don't want to hear what I got to say. Just like everybody else, nobody want to hear what I got to say. And this emotional response um, caused him to lash out. But what's ironic is it's a cycle. Because
Hmm.
if you as a kid, nobody care what you have to say, you passing this on to me, your son, because now I feel like you don't want to hear what I have to say. I'm trying to explain myself and tell you that I was having a positive experience. I was daydreaming. You don't want to hear that. So now I'm carrying this into my adulthood, and this has had an effect on me for a long time until I met a mentor. I met my mentor, Frank, and this was a business mentor. And in business, you have to speak to people and do like public
Hmm.
speaking. And that was a first time in my life when I did some public speaking. And they kind of let me see that some people do care what I have to say. What I have to say is valuable. And over time, that feeling of nobody care what I got to say, I might as well just stick to myself and just shut up, just get out of my face. That was something my parents would constantly say, get out of my face. That has made me avoidant. I avoid stuff.
Hmm.
I get away from it. But
Yeah.
over the years, there has been improvement. Now you said kids. Why kids? I want to help kids. You said why parenting? I target the parents because I want the kids to have the parents that I wish I had. I don't
Hmm.
do this for parents. I do this for kids. Kids are
Yeah.
innocent victims.
Yeah.
Kids
So you
are
do
collateral
this.
damage.
Yeah. Because you could also have made the decision to help the kids if they have issues. But you want to be either before that or fix, I would say, air quotes, fix
Oh yeah,
the
thanks.
parents so that they can have that role for the children, right? So that they can be the support for the children.
And that's the thing, because I'm not no licensed therapist. I'm just me. So I
Hmm.
can't like go work with kids directly at some 3-year-olds, but I can work with parents.
Yeah.
So that's why I do it. My mom told me one time before, she was like, she wished she had a mentor like me when she was coming up.
Hmm.
And
True. That's something to say.
that's something to say, right? To
Yeah.
your child. I wish now as an adult, she was like, I wish I had somebody like you when I was coming up. It's like, wow.
That's a very painful compliment. I can imagine. It's a bit of a, right? Like,
Yeah.
it hurts a bit. It's an acknowledgement as well, maybe, of things that happened, but then also huge compliment to you, how important it is what you do, and that it actually people see it having that result that you're seeking for.
What else? More questions.
What else? Oh, so many questions. That's my job. I do
That's
this
just,
for a profession, asking questions.
yeah.
No, that's what I was most curious about. So, if there would have been one thing that you could change uh, from your childhood, if anything, what would it be?
Honestly,
Hmm.
if I could go back and change it, I would have never been born. I didn't give consent. I was forced to live this life. Nobody asked me. I didn't sign up for this, but
Hmm.
I'm here and now I got to deal with the consequences of somebody else's actions. I ain't do nothing. One day I'm just here and now I got to deal with it. So I've been dealing with it.
Yeah.
Can't change it, right? So are you?
The being born, no, not really, or I don't feel like you should at least. But there's a lot of uh, things like now it's all up to you, I would say. It has been
Exactly.
for a little while. So I recognize this feeling. It's a feeling I had for a long time. Maybe not in with the same words. The not being born is not something I've ever thought, but not seeing any use in being here, definitely.
Mm,
Um, which I don't know if it's the same, but I feel like that correlates quite a bit. But now, I think this is, if we talk about breaking that cycle of things that happen with parents, I think that is all in taking responsibility for the life that you have and definitely for the life that you decide to create, because
yeah.
none of us had a say in here, right? In getting here. Well, some believe differently, maybe, but I agree with you on that part. But there's a lot that you can do. I think if you look at the work that you're doing now, or for myself, I think the coaching was really a big change in my whole perception of the world and my perception of life itself.
Yeah.
You know, the influence that we can have in that.
Um, value. Okay, so if we want to get a little more into it,
Mm.
okay, value. People are going to do what's in their own best interest. Do you agree with that?
Mm, I think so. Like naturally, it's just the way that we are wired. You have to do what's in your own best interest to survive.
Exactly.
If it comes down to it, you don't have any other choice. And I always tell people like we still die, even though not like we used to when we were still living in a cave. Then it was really you're alive or you're dead. Um, but you can emotionally die, you can spiritually die off. There's a lot of different phases of physically ending up dead. And that's something I feel people are not aware of enough. And it's okay to do what's best for yourself. I think we should all do that. Start there. And
Mm,
then when you've done that, that's, I feel like a phase where I am now, where I've done all the work for me and I'm really, really in a good place now, spiritually, emotionally, can handle so much that now I can actually be there for other people, which still is something that does good to me. I like what I do. I like my work. I love the coaching sessions that I have. I love creating things like, the challenges, workbooks, new exercises, learning more. It has a lot of value for everybody, but I would always say that I do this for myself mainly because it makes me happy.
mm,
I'm just lucky that I can help other people with what makes me happy.
yeah. If people are going to do what's in their own best interest and they have problems, it's in their own best interest to get their problem solved.
Hmm.
True?
Yeah.
If it's in your own best interest, okay, so you have a problem, you want it solved. I wanted to make a business around solving problems.
Hmm.
And one of the biggest problems I've seen is in parenting, is in misunderstandings. Some parents try to raise their kids as if their kids are like them, but
Yeah.
their kids could be totally different from them. And you're trying to, for example, I told the story before. You got a dad, a competitive dad, and two sons. Only one of the sons is competitive. So the dad, because he's competitive, he uses competition to motivate his sons, and it worked for one of them. He tell him, "Oh, you can never do what I do. You can never beat my score. You can never do that. You can never do this." And the son want to prove him wrong because this son is competitive,
Yeah.
right? But the other son is not like that. The other son, you tell him you could never do this, you could never do that. He don't take it as competition. He don't take it as I want to prove you wrong. You're saying some very hurtful stuff right now. Why are you talking down to me so bad? Because you are competitive, don't assume that I'm competitive. Don't act like I'm you. I'm me. So how about you learn me? That's a big problem that has a domino effect. So I do this work to help parents understand their kids, what motivates them, how to encourage them, how to teach them. Everybody don't learn the same.
Yeah, exactly.
You know what I mean? So I help
Yeah.
parents understand their kids so they can create happy memories instead of childhood wounds.
Yeah. Yeah, I think that's really good. So I remember this one time when I was just in bed and not willing to move, come out of it, talk to my mom. She called my dad because I'm emotionally a lot more like him
Mm,
than like my mom. The way that I express my emotions, but also internally, the way that I can internalize them, or the way that I did not know how to deal with them back then. She tried to talk to me, my mom, and there was just no getting through to me. And she called my dad, I think it was probably late, maybe 10, 11 p.m. And it was pure frustration from her side. But she walked in my room and she laid the phone next to me. She told my dad, like, I don't know how to talk to this child anymore. You talk to her. And I think it was a very I know she was very frustrated at that moment, but a very powerful thing that she did there to just like, I don't know what to do anymore. But she recognized my dad in me, of course.
mm,
Because if you don't forget that a child is always a bit of both, it
exactly.
cannot be. And sometimes you just need to understand what is happening. And a lot of times I think parents don't or not, they don't have the full picture. And she recognized something in the way that I was just laying in bed that she knew that my dad would understand that better. So she's just like, you go fix it. It was maybe also a lot of her frustrations of you left, that's why she said. And, there's all of that coming up. Um, and he was just there on the phone. I don't know, maybe for 2 minutes, maybe it was 20 minutes, but he was just like, okay, I'm here. And just waited for me to start talking. Or I don't know, I don't really remember what happened after that. But that's also, it can be so difficult to understand somebody else. I think what we forget. This is something that my brother's partner told me recently. She's like, people forget that if you get a child, you're bringing a new personality into your relationship. You just don't know which one it is.
Mm,
So it's like a wild card in personalities. And with the relationship, you've made that decision to be together and you've seen like, okay, we match. But now there's going to be something new, which is not one, not the other. And it can be a mismatch with parents, or it can be too much of something. Um, and it changes. We change as human beings. I think we should change and evolve and be a different person every day. But that in a family is so challenging, and for parents, it's very important to keep navigating that or try to know when you don't know, and continuously be curious of who this child actually is today, because every day is a new day. You have a new
mm.
kid almost. Because we see that, right? When children are very young, every time like, oh, they're growing fast, literally. Every day they get to learn new things. You see them learning new things. But this continues for us. Uh, but somehow society decided that at some point that stops and now you are this person, but it doesn't work like that. We have to continuously be curious, who is that in front of me? And ask questions like, what do you need? What motivates you? What frustrates you? Just have that conversation. Because even when a kid's 3, as soon as they can speak, they can express themselves and tell you what's going on. And the children will have to read between the lines a little bit, but you
Hmm.
keep having that conversation, I think is most important. Yeah.
Let me start one more clip. You said that when you have a child, you bring in a new personality into the mix,
hmm
and you don't know until life goes on.
I think you just don't know. You don't know what kind of baby you're gonna have. The baby's pure personality because they don't know that they are yet. So they just are. Then
But
children start. Oh, sorry, yeah.
no, I'm saying okay. You don't know your child's personality until it reveals itself. Would you agree with that statement?
Yeah.
Okay. And it takes time for that personality to reveal itself. Do you agree with that statement?
No, not really.
It don't take time for it to reveal?
No, I don't think so. I think it's from day one. Even mothers know already when they're pregnant of a child, there's already that personality at some point. If I have conversations, and we only know this looking back, but when you grow up, there's things that sometimes a mom says, "Oh, I remember when I was pregnant already, you had this effect, either on my, physiology, like what I wanted to eat, but also the way I would sleep or the way that a baby sleeps is different for every baby.
Mm,
The way that they cry, why they cry, how loud, how long, what frequency. It's all different for every baby. So, and that already are personality traits. It just gets more complicated over time. There's more
mm,
added because we learn and we grow and we get more skills and we become more aware. So it evolves, I would say. Um, and that's, coming back to the be curious about your child. That's why we need to continuously be aware of that. Who are you today? What do you need today? That changes.
yeah.
But I don't feel like it takes time
Be
to,
curious.
yeah,
I agree. Be curious. Ask questions and not being sarcastic questions, but genuine curiosity.
yeah. And if a child triggers you, I want to ask, like, so what do you need to do then? What does that say about you?
As a parent.
Yeah, as a person, even. Because I've seen this, like my last round of therapy was just last year when just some stuff came up, got triggered by somebody else's situation.
You
And
got triggered?
yeah, me, or like old trauma that came up. I was
Okay.
just no, but I noticed it very quickly. I'm like, oh, I'm not doing well, and there's something, I don't know what's happening here, but I'm just not functioning anymore.
Mm,
So found a therapist, got to that very quickly, and 10 sessions, and we're good for life now, I hope. But still, I learned new things about myself, and it was very good also for the relationship with me and my partner, but also the relationship I have with my friends, with my siblings, because I have to, or I think we all should be constantly aware if I become mad at something or somebody, that is something that's happening with me.
mm.
So what does that say about me? If we come back to maybe the early start of this conversation, um, we like to take or put responsibility to somebody else. Parents do that to their children a lot. Where they're like, "Why you are being mad? You are frustrated. You are aggressive. You are sad." It's always that. But why is that frustrating me? And if you ask that question, then you can really solve something with yourself, and then automatically give space to the development of a child to learn how to safely express themselves and have it figured out for themselves later on.
Yeah. Leading by example.
Yeah.
I saw this video. There was a dad who was teasing his son, making fun of his son, because the son didn't
Hmm.
know how to pump gas. And the son was like, how am I supposed to know how to pump gas? You never taught me. I heard a woman say how she broke up with her boyfriend because he was supposed to just know. She was like, he's supposed to just
Yeah.
know this.
Yeah.
How would he
Uh,
know if you don't tell him?
ain't TikTok full of this? Yeah. Yeah, it's also a societal thing, I feel like, because I've had this conversation with my partner who's in construction. We are not even remodeling, almost rebuilding the house that we bought. And he's getting a lot of advice because it's like a bigger kind of construction than he's ever done. And we want to have, as entrepreneurs as well, I think you notice, we want to have conversations. If I don't know something or if I'm doubting between making decision A or B, you want to have a conversation with somebody, and preferably somebody that's been there and knows this already. And what I've noticed in this whole building our house is that sometimes he even gets laughed at by your colleagues in the field, right? Like, oh,
Mm.
don't you know this about concrete? I'm like, but how am I supposed to know? I didn't learn it, so no, I don't know.
Right.
But why are we laughing about that? Why are we looking down upon somebody not knowing something instead of saying, "Oh, you don't know this? Awesome. Okay, let me tell you how to
Right.
do." You know, there's a very different energy and a different way of looking at it. Um, so maybe with a lot of these stories that we're telling, this is something that is not only in our raising our children, but also it's like in the whole society. If we stop looking down on not knowing, we don't have to look down on ourselves anymore. But also definitely don't look down on your child not knowing something. It's your responsibility as a parent to teach them, to make them safe in learning, comfortable with making mistakes. This is something my mom did very well. I was very bad at French. If there's anybody out there that's dyslexic and French is not your native language, you know, it was horrible. But I needed to pass it. 3 years of French we are obligated to have here in high school. And there was just no way of me passing that class. But my mom got me a cake once because we do grades out of 10. And I
Hmm.
got, I think, a 2.8. And she was like, wow. It wasn't a one. I got 2.8. She's like, that is amazing. Because she saw I was really trying, but my brain just doesn't do it. So, and school's putting you down already. Your classmates are putting you down already. Um, so she didn't feel like your parents need to put you down. And I actually tried. It was the only thing I was studying for. And she got me a cake. And you did very well. Because a 2.8 is for somebody else, if you always get an 8, then you need a 10 to get a compliment. But if your average is a 1 or 1.5, a 2 is really, really good.
About the effort.
So, yeah, well, and the trying and learning, and we cannot all be amazing in everything. We don't have to be, but can we please just be able to make mistakes, be able to learn, be able to grow? Yeah, I think that's very important because if you laugh at your child for not knowing how to put gas in the car or not knowing how to fix a flat tire, how are they ever going to learn?
Exactly.
Yeah.
It's funny because I had this conversation with somebody in my group the other day, and we was talking about assumptions and this phrase, I know.
Hmm.
You try to tell somebody something, they say, I know. I used to teach photography, so I still teach photography sometimes. But I had a photography student, and I was telling him something, and it seemed like every other thing I said, he said, I know. Oh, I already know that. Oh, yeah, I know that. So I started skipping stuff. I started skipping lessons.
Yeah.
And then when we got to the end of it, he was like, why didn't you tell me about this? I'm thinking to myself, this is something so basic, and you kept saying, I know, I know, I know. You should have known that by now. So I started telling future students, if I say something that you already know, don't cut me off saying that I know, because there's a chance I might skip something that you actually don't know.
Yeah. And you don't know what you don't know.
So just be quiet and
That's
listen.
yeah.
This
Yeah, and don't assume something is very basic. We had it in the workshop I gave last week. Where there was something about, the neuroscience brain things, instinctive brain. I caught myself assuming that this is something that everybody knows.
mm,
And there was one person in that workshop at some point, she was like, sorry, can you repeat that? Because I didn't quite get it. Or I made like a prefrontal cortex joke, like a puberty joke.
hmm
And it didn't land because she didn't know exactly how that works or how that brain development works. And after the workshop, I thought I need to really be aware of not assuming that people know how the brain works because this I've done this for a decade now. I know, and I keep
yeah,
reading new science about it, but I'm not allowed to assume that somebody knows it. And I don't know if you've noticed this, but if I give like a workshop or if I have to speak somewhere, I keep checking. I check a lot. Are there any questions? And if I ask, are there any questions? And then there's just one person in the group who says, oh yeah, I have a question. Sometimes it's something very small. I explain it. Do you get it? Okay. Then I ask again to the whole group, are there any questions? Because even one sentence can bring up like new questions or new unknowns for people. And I'm
hmm
not allowed to assume that somebody got it, that this is something somebody knows, that there's no questions or that there are. But assuming is very dangerous. I think we do it too much.
yeah. You ever catch yourself not, because we was talking about, um, you said your partner, people would laugh at him for asking a certain question, saying that you should already know this. Do you think this would had this ever happened to you where it caused you to not ask questions out of fear that somebody would mock you or make fun of you because you don't know?
Yeah, it's like in high school. Um, so my dyslexia only came out in high school, not in elementary school. I managed to hide it there, um, but very well. So we have a high school system that has different levels, and in like end of elementary school. So we have a very different school system than in the US.
Hmm.
But we go until eighth grade, which is when you're 12. Then you get like a test, and that decides what level high school are you gonna do.
Okay.
Gymnasium is the highest. Then we have VWO, HAVO, VMBO. So it's like different intellect is what it's originally thought of as more practical and more theoretical education, I prefer to call it. So I went to the highest one, which also meant that without a dyslexia diagnosis, I got Dutch, English, French, German, Latin, and Greek, because you only get Latin and Greek on the highest level. And because
Hmm.
you get the extra languages, you get less time in a week for the other ones.
Wow.
So that was probably the worst thing that could have happened to me. And I wasn't even interested in it. It was just that the school said you were graded on the highest level, so you should do that. They called my mom, the principal called my mo mother and said, if you don't make sure that she goes to the gymnasium, you're a bad mom.
Hmm.
Because I wanted to go to the level below that because I wasn't interested in the languages, of course. I already knew that's not my thing. But they almost forced my mom to force me to get there because you get more paid for the children that go to a higher level. Complete
Ah,
failure. Like it was in the first few weeks already when everything, even my English and my English is very well. I think we can state that for a Dutch person.
yeah, you good.
Even that I failed. I was one of the few kids that already could speak English going to high school from home. Um, but still, I had no idea, and I could nothing. Dutch, I was failing everything, even math. I'm really good at math. Um, Failing everything. It was horrible, and I just it puts you down. It was a self-confidence thing. Then the dyslexia came out. My mom actually paid to get me tested because school didn't want to do that.
Hmm.
So she scrambled up the money and got me tested. And I come from a very educational family, so my Dutch families are all very high educated, extremely intelligent human beings, all of them. And myself included, I would say now. But then I thought, see, I have dyslexia. That means I'm stupid. And then what high school did at the end of that year, my grades were so bad that they didn't even. I wanted to do the year over, but then on the other level to go, have a second chance. And they're like, nah,
Hmm.
your grades are so bad. You know what we do? We put you on one of the lowest levels.
Wow.
And then we see if you do well there, then you can go to the other level you want to be on the year after. But that wasn't true. So they kind of tricked me into that. And then I was there, and everything was too easy, right? After that, I've never went to school. They kept calling my mom because, of course, I wasn't doing a great job. I had good grades though, because everything was easy for me. But
Right.
my behavior, it didn't do good things for my behavior. And then they wanted to, how do you say that? When you have to spend extra time after classes because of a punishment.
Detention.
Yeah, they wanted to put me in detention, or they also had like you had to come early in school, and my mom was always like, "No, because you put her there." And now the child is bored, and she already has emotional difficulties, we can say. So she's like, "You guys just deal with it, but you cannot punish her because of a decision that you force her into." And
Hello.
now she's not need in the right. Now she's not in the right place. Sucks to be you. So she was not supportive of my behavior, but in that way I felt heard by my mom in that whole process because she really acknowledged that it wasn't your mistake and there's nothing we can do about it now. You have to go through the next 4 years of high school and this is just it. But she wouldn't let them punish me for a mistake that a principal made or the teachers made the year before. So I don't really know how I started this story, but the assumptions we were talking about, assumptions, yeah, that made me really give up on asking questions. Anyways, I only still did that in art classes, in the cultural classes, in the cultural project. I was really there. The
Wow,
rest,
because of those.
um, I felt like if you're not going to listen to me or listen to what I want, why would I even ask a question?
But the art classes, you did ask questions.
Oh yeah, because that was just I was interested in that. Different type of teachers as well. You know, we all know the art teacher and the music teacher, you can pick them out of the crowd of teachers usually.
How are they different? What's a regular what English teacher versus the art teacher? What do they?
I think art teachers are more open to the expression of the children. It's
Mm,
also their class is about that. And with like an English teacher or a history teacher, it's just I need to teach you this, so you need to listen to me because you need to be tested on that. And there's no space for your own development or personality in there. And with
hmm.
like an arts class or a gym class or a music class, it is about that. It is about learning a new skill, expressing yourself. There's more space for a child to be and to also not be not well sometimes. That's fine. Yeah, and I think it comes with the territory a bit. Especially art teachers are usually quirky people. So I guess for a quirky child, that's also a nicer place to be at. Yeah.
So what do you think about balance? If you got two parents that's very left brain, logical, you do this so you can pass the test, no expression for self. But then you got two parents who are hippies,
Hmm.
are art parents.
Yeah.
There's
Learn in your own pace. Yeah.
learn at your own pace, right?
Yeah.
The extremes versus meeting in the middle. Do you see a correlation in that just in life in general?
Yeah. I think people need to be in the right context. And if you are on the, let's say, the hippie side, then and your child is as well. This is most important because just because you are as a parent doesn't mean that your child is there as well. But especially with education, I have a lot of strong opinions about this. Um, we need to look at a child and see how do they learn and what do they need. And if you are hippie parents, but you have, let's say you get a child with autism, then it can be very beneficial for that child to be in a very structured educational environment for them to be able to learn and not to let them run around in the woods and say, in your own time. That can even be very damaging. And the other way around as well, if you have if you have a hip child, because I might be one of those. They learn very differently, and it can be very beneficial for them to be on a more artsy school or to even be homeschooled. If you're driving through the country in your camper van, there are children that can function very well in that context, but you really need to see for every individual human being what do they need. And
How do you
sometimes,
see what do they need?
yeah, that's observation. And if you don't see it yourself, then get a professional involved that can help you with that.
So you think it's hard? You say you got to see what they need?
I think a lot of the times parents feel instinctively that their child needs something, especially when they're not doing well. Parents always feel this, right? They're like, there's whatever it is, but there's something. My child needs something different. But what that is, that can be a very difficult question. And sometimes it needs, you need a diagnosis. Sometimes you need professional guidance. Sometimes it can just be a different school. Doesn't different diet can be so it can be a big change for some children. Um, yeah, so I think just observe and see if your child is doing well or not. We see that you know that as parents. I've never seen parents that um, were did not know if their child was doing good or not. But what they need, yeah, that's a difficult question, or it can be, yeah.
Trying to figure out what they need can be difficult.
Yeah, it can be, especially if you, and I mean, if we talk about parents that adopt, if you're adoptive parents, then sometimes you don't even know what the background, like genetically, the background of a child is. So then it can be, I can imagine it can be even more difficult to navigate, or if you get a child where they don't really know where it came from, it because some children just pop up in a system and you don't even know what they've, as babies, maybe been through. There can be a lot there that is difficult to navigate. So just, I think honesty is very important. Parents amongst each other, just be honest. Do we know? Do we not know? Do we need professional help or not? There's no shame
Hmm.
in that.
You
And
mentioned
just
genetics.
observe. Yeah.
You said sometimes you don't know the genetic background, but if you do know the genetics, what part do you think genetics plays in understanding what a child needs?
I do believe that a part of our personalities or the way that we process life is genetic. Um, it's a nature nurture debate, right? And I do feel that we have both. That's why every human being is different. But if I look at myself and my parents, there's a lot of genetic compounds in that. Even like I said, the story with how I processed emotions going through puberty, that was a lot like my dad. So, and then you can relate, and then you can understand already a bit more than maybe a different parent or a different person. Um, yeah, and also what we talked about before, if mothers are pregnant, or people are pregnant, I think I should say, that it's already there, right? At some point when a baby is born, already there's a basic personality there. There's personality traits, there's needs, habits develop very quickly. Within a few days, I hear young parents sometimes say like, "Oh, he or she's already doing this," or "This is what they like if we go to bed." That's habits already being developed. So yeah, I think we have both, and it's just a bigger question if you don't know what the genetics of your child are. Also, with things like autism and dyslexia, it's a different way that your brain develops. So that for my parents was also new because they were not a nobody in the family yet that had that. So that was also something new that we discovered.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right. I think this has been great, Katinka. This has been great. I've enjoyed and got some gems and some different perspectives. I think the audience can benefit from this conversation. Any last words you want to say? Any parting words? I do
Yeah.
want to shout out your school community. The
Oh, right, yes.
Yeah, shout
The
out this.
Reinvention Project. Yes,
Yeah,
I do have a school community. It's called the Reinvention Project because that's what I believe we need to, or we should be able to reinvent ourselves every single day. You are allowed to be something new every single day. And the thing with that is what I would love for everybody in the world to get a chance to live life in their own way and on their own terms. Something I, in this context would like to tell parents that goes for you, that goes for your child. Try to create a context where that is possible. And I think that will benefit everybody. And for lasting words, I just want to thank you for this conversation. I feel like I've been talking for an hour and a half straight. But thank you for sharing a few of your stories as well and having me be a part of your podcast. It was a yeah, interesting, awesome.
fantastic. Well, I'm looking forward to seeing you in class, seeing you in school. Maybe I bump into you in
Yes.
the cafeteria. But
Thank
yeah. All right, Katinka, thanks a lot for your time.
you.